Oh,
Hey everybody, we have special guest Landon Curt Noll back, the astronomer, computer scientist, mathematician, blah 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 blah, smart guy. That's his introduction. That's all he gets because we all know who he is, and he's smart. What else do you need to know? But we're going to be talking about the eclipse, which is something I happen to found very fascinating because this was a monumental event. Unfortunately, I was not able to be anywhere near path of totality. However, I did do the pseudo-scientific home amateur person thingy. I made a little pinhole camera thingy. So I watched it that way. But my area was only like 60 some odd percent totality. So anyways, Landon's going to join us here and tell us all about his experience as he bathed in the glory of totality from Jackson Hole. Was that where you were?
Yes, and so this is Landon. Hello, folks. We were in the Jackson Hole region, which is near the city of Jackson, Wyoming. Also, that region well known for the Teton Mountain Range, just south of Wyoming's Great Yellowstone National Park, where we saw an eclipse where totality lasts for 2 minutes and 16.3 seconds.
Oh, so you were in a place where it was a long period of time because a lot of places totality only existed for like what, 90 seconds, a minute and a half, something like that.
Although there's spots that would last like about 2.5 minutes or so, I think, near the maximum. But anyway, it was a cloud-free from first contact when the moon first came in to the fourth contact. We had a really good viewing. I was also quite pleased because yet again the moon was within about a half second of when I expected the moon to be there. Yeah, I'm always reminded, I advise her that the universe does not ask for permission to do what it does. So when you do these detailed calculations to figure out when the eclipse will begin, it's always nice to see that your hypothesis is confirmed by actual observations. So I was actually quite pleased to see the moon begin where we expected it to be, and at that point it was just a matter of mechanics moving through. Did a really nice thing of I took a large white bed sheet, and that was used for several things. One, we could do pinhole projections, small crescents onto the bed sheet. One point, we were at the Teton School of Science, TSS there. Really great location, by the way, great organization that people about geology and ecology and plants, animals, and sorts of good things there. Their mission is really to sort of give people hands-on in the natural world. And so we saw the eclipse there. And the kitchen staff was kind enough to bring out a huge colander that they use for making pasta. Put the pasta aside and instead dedicated the colander to production onto the
real quick, you're getting that hissy sound again. People can hear you, but it's that hissy sound again, and they're noticing. I wonder if you could try to maybe change.
See, I think it looks like it flipped back here. So
well, see, there you go. See that now it's fine. That's what whatever you did last time.
Okay, I apologize.
Yeah, now it's good again.
I was going to say that compared to Steve, your mic is like it's almost like you are far away and it's hissing a bit. But now it's perfectly fine.
Okay, I apologize for that. I don't know why it flipped.
Yeah, he fixed it before we went on air, and then it flipped back, I guess. So.
Okay. All right, so we're back to there. So I apologize. Do I need to repeat anything?
No. They can hear you. It was just hissy.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so hopefully this is less hissy. So
he's having a hissy fit. You see this? No, I was kidding. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So we're much better. Thank you again for your indulgence there. So as I say, then the other thing that the white sheet does is helps you see the shadow bands, these sort of pulls of light that run across the ground. And in our particular case, that we saw the shadow bands about 2.5 minutes before totality, up through about 5 minutes after totality.
Are these fine ripples of shadow on the ground caused by Bailey speeds?
There's actually a debate over what they're caused by. It certainly is an atmospheric phenomenon because we do not see shadow bands when satellites in outer space observe an eclipse. Not like
Oh, did we lose him? Is that me? Am I freezing?
altitude planes flying through the shadow, and it's most it's observed before the eclipse. That they may be doing during the eclipse, but the light levels drop by about almost 1 million-fold in those last few moments, and then during totality. So if there are shadow bands in the middle of the totality, it's too faint to see. Some people, reckon it to be a atmospheric phenomenon due to a thermal shock front. During an eclipse, the shadow that cast by the moon gives a cold zone, right? It's night. If effectively it's nighttime in that zone, and so the air in that zone tends to be colder. Now, that's complicated by the fact that the sun doesn't directly heat the air. It actually heats the ground, and the ground heats the air. So I have, for example, a really nice image showing, let me go and share that image of some weather satellites and what the eclipse looked like from space. Here it is. So I think,
and the other explanation is that the Earth is flat, right?
Well, this one's been doctored by non-flat earthers to show the Earth is being round. No, I'm joking. Here we're going to see from outer space North America. Can you see the space image?
Yes.
And in fact, during this thing, you can see lightning going on. Let's see, in this area here, you can see lightning storms for those people in the Midwest. But that's the moon shadow moving across.
That is awesome. Here, obviously. That is just freaking awesome.
In real time, there's another thing here from NASA. You can see there's the shadow moving across the Earth.
And this satellite is on the Lagrangian point.
Yes.
Yes. It's epic satellite. Yes.
And there's the other more detailed satellites show you the weather phenomenon. So you imagine if you look at this particular area here, it's nighttime for this region. So the shadow is moving from west to east here, and so people, for example, in mid South Carolina, for example, the Georgia region, are about to have totality descend on them. And so what's ahead of them is a cold zone. This area here, the ground is cooling off, and so the cold air in contact with the ground sinks and falls off. So what you get is a wind phenomenon where wind is moving from the shadow towards sunlight because cold air is sinking, hitting the ground and spilling off. So in fact, go ahead.
So you get ripples in the atmosphere, and you have for example, if you see a swimming pool with like ripples on the top, you can see the shadows it creates on the bottom of the swimming pool.
Yes,
maybe it's like that. Maybe.
Yes. And so in fact the shadow bands are they're like seeing the ripples on the bottom of a swimming pool from the surface of the water. So we're planning to do some experiments in upcoming eclipses to try to be more definitive about what the shadow bands are. There are some people who have definitively declared, that shadow bands have been solved, but there are observations that tend to complicate their explanations that they tend to ignore. So we're going to try to do some experiments over the next several eclipses to try to see if we can pinpoint this phenomenon. But anyway, one of the things that's really nice is, again, the wind coming from the shadow. And so the group I was with I was asking questions, and so I would say something like, where is the wind coming from? Not wanting to bias what they're doing, and they would all stick their finger up and sort of point in a direction. And then about 5 minutes before totality, that wind shifted to the direction the shadow was coming from, and stayed that way, got stronger as totality approached. But when totality occurred, the wind was coming straight down on top of us. That is, we had a calm sensation as opposed to a side sensation.
So it creates a low or high pressure or low pressure region?
I would say it would be a high pressure, since the air is moving away from it into a low pressure zone.
Right.
In sunlight. So at the end of totality, where the shadow is moving off towards the east, or really sort of its east southeast direction, then the wind shifts and flips 180 degrees and comes from the shadow that's receding. So you get this coming. The wind shifts as the shadow gets near. The shadow descends on you. You then have this period of calm, also of course cold, and then the reverse happens on the exit. The coldest temperatures occur about 5 minutes after the end of totality. Coldest air temperature, because it takes time for the energy on the ground to be reflected in the nearby air. There's a little bit of a delay. That's sort of the same reason why the coldest time at night tends to be just a little bit after dawn.
Real quick, if you can, Landon, can you explain to some flat earthers out there that don't seem to understand the dynamic system between the Earth and the Moon, why we see the Moon rise in the east and set in the west, but of course the Moon travels west to east? So why do we see the shadow travel from west to east?
It's a relative motion. I mean, when we talk about the sun moving in the sky, the proper way is to say, or the moon moving in the sky, is the apparent motion. Because what's happening is we're spinning, relative to their location. Of course, everything's in motion, but the primary motion that you see is the Earth spinning on its axis, and so when we appear to be moving still, and everything else is moving backwards. Much like if your car is going down the road, and you're watching, you're traveling down the road, and all the scenery appears to be going backwards. It isn't the case that your car is standing still and the scenery just happens to be running backwards and you happen to be steering through it. Your car is going down the road, but from your vantage point, the scenery appears to be moving past you, and you appear to be standing still. It's that same perception.
Relativity.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, this is a fairly extensive thing that's observed in space. Here's another really great image showing the shadow moving across. This is by one of the it's there. So let's watch that again. And so that's at the spot where we were seeing the eclipse. And you can see along the path, the northwest was actually quite clear, even in areas such as rainy western Oregon was actually quite clear. The area of the shadow in the Midwest, they had clouds, and so people, some of them saw it as cloudy, and the East Coast cooperated pretty well. There was a little bit of clouding towards the coastline, but for the most part, people saw that as there as well. And you could tell the shadow creates a cold zone that most weather models don't account for. Most weather models assume the sun is shining throughout the day. So people doing eclipse forecasting have to take into account the fact that the models are going to fail around the shadow zone, because the computer's models don't really account for those sort of showing. Here's another.
Does it really have a very significant impact on the weather?
Yes. I mean, for example, in our case in Jackson, we had a 7°C drop in temperature from the very beginning of the eclipse, when the moon first began to cover the sun, to the coldest point just after totality. And that's a significant drop. And if you're in a area like on the water or on a ship where the air is naturally moist and the dew point is quite high, you can actually get cloud formation as a result of the eclipse shadow going across.
Instant condensation.
Yes. So there is a change in the weather. Now, it was relatively dry for certain sections. So for example, here in the case of, we see the shadow up in the just touching in the Oregon region, and they actually had a remarkably cloud-free zone. Had this banks been advanced a little bit farther, then the dew point would have been higher, and the eclipse would have created clouding conditions. But fortunately for many people that went to places like Madras, Oregon, it did not. So here's another one of another GOES satellite image across, showing the spot in the entrance. So did I guess I'd ask, did people in this chat, did you or here online, did you see the eclipse? If so, what did you see?
I'm in the Netherlands, so no, sadly enough.
Like I said, I made a camera.
I wish was there.
I made a little pinhole camera, just 2 pieces of paper with a little pinhole held a couple feet away from each other, and I invited my landlord, who lives in the other room over yonder, to come out and check it out. And he was pretty interested in it. You could definitely see the path of the moon going across the sun over time. I mean, you can see that it was a little bit notched, and then about totality, which I think was for me about 10:30 something or other, give or take. And at that point, you could see that it was probably about 60% of the moon was covered or so. I don't remember the exact number in my area. It was somewhere between 60 or 68 or something. You could probably look it up if I gave you my exact location. Just say Menifee. Menifee's close enough.
Yeah. So if we look at this image again and projecting, here we see the shadow approaching the continental U.S. The ocean, of course, is colder than the land, and so you have condensation over the water. That is, and we see, however, that condensation stopped at the coastline. At this stage here, the people in Oregon are seeing partial eclipse, and the total eclipse is heading their way.
So that's the whole shadow there is actually much larger than that little darker region. You can actually see like the preumbra, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so that's the totality, region, right? That my cursor going through is where it's total.
Okay, but the whole other region that's already gone to Oregon and beyond, that's the shadow that I can see.
And this area here, they're beginning to see the partial eclipse, right? And so sun is beginning to fade, whereas these people out here are in full sunlight.
It can be difficult to see because the penumbra is not the one thing; it's like a gradient. It gets gradually darker the further you go.
And that's just because the distances between the moon and the Earth and the relationship of the sun, moon, Earth, sun, moon. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you look at, for example, let's go back to an image like this one here. This zone is where the people in this zone would observe the moon completely covering the sun. The people out here would see the moon partially covering the sun. This image is too close, but the people back maybe in the far corner would see the sun completely uncovered by the moon. It depends upon where you are. So when you said, like, for example, it was about 70%.
Yeah, I couldn't look at obviously I couldn't look at the sun directly and see how much the moon was covering it, but it did seem like there was a dimming effect, kind of like a cloud cover. You could definitely see that the light of the sun was reduced, right? It changed.
Let me switch over to this other map here. There we go. Present everyone this map. So here we see a map of the shadow, right, of where it's going, and in this map, this this sort of orange yellow line is where it's total. This is where the moon completely covers the sun. And then if you see the first major dark red line, like going down this way and going up this way, is where the sun is covering 90%. So people,
I have a question. In the previous picture, you showed that the shadow is, I think it looks bigger than just this yellow line, or am I mistaken?
So what you're seeing there is the satellite's inability to go between completely dark and very dark. So you know, in the shadow, what we saw, the shadow was showing a region like this. And it was actually, that dark region was going out to about 96, 97%.
So if you had a better, hypothetically, if you had a better satellite, that black area of the totality would probably be a little smaller.
A better gamma, yes.
Okay.
Is the issue. So if you adjusted your gamma to give a more distinct thing between relatively dark and very dark, you would see a different.
And anybody who plays games adjust their gamma on certain monitors. We've all done it. It's like you can't see anything, and then you change your gamma, and all of a sudden you get a little more. You get a little more detail. It's brighter, but it's a little more detail.
So if you look at this map here, you know, it's showing you that even like, you know, in southern Baja California had like a 40% coverage of the moon. Of the moon covering the sun, I should say.
I was just south of LA. What does that say?
Yeah, so Los Angeles would be around 70% or so.
Yeah, I'm about halfway between LA and San Diego. Halfway between.
How is this percentage measured? It's the surface area of the sun, or something else?
The magnitude. They talk about magnitude. They talk about area.
Area.
Typically on that, not distance across. Because again, it's you're wanting to show. You're wanting to show the effect of the eclipse.
Yeah.
The reduction of sunlight, and
it isn't linear. It gets exponential the closer it gets.
Yes, and from your facts, you feel the wind, you feel the drop in temperature. You begin to see a sharpening of shadows. The colors become enhanced because instead of light coming from a half-degree disk that the sun is an angular diameter in the sky, it comes from a thin slit. And so for a certain direction, for this direction along the slit, the shadows become quite well defined, quite sharp.
Were you like a pinhole?
Were you under the totality of the eclipse when it happened?
Absolutely, yes. So we
there's something weird I really observed when I saw it in the UK. About 16, 17 years ago. And that was the fact that all the birds went quiet and all the seagulls landed on the sea.
Yes, I mean a lot of animals take the clue, and even plants as well, that it gets colder and darker. And go into their these animals that are triggered by the events of the eclipse.
Did any of these animals get traumatized and have to seek therapy afterwards?
I was going to ask, does this have negative consequences?
We could have made some money off that. So we could have been like an animal psychologist to go, give counseling to these poor animals.
This is something we have to go in. These are phenomena you have to go out and seek. So, for example, I just ran the numbers for Los Angeles, and the last time there was a total eclipse in Los Angeles was in the year 1724. It was actually 4 minutes and 33 seconds. So it's a pretty good eclipse. And there's not another total eclipse in Los Angeles clear of the way to the year 3000. So. You'll definitely have to move someplace rather than waiting for it to come to you.
What about a partial eclipse?
A really long time. Oh yes, there's plenty of partial eclipses.
Well, the next total one for the United States is what, 2024?
Yes, well, the next total eclipse is actually in 2019, and let's go and flip over to this particular chart here.
To answer your question, Steve, I think there were animals that were traumatized by solar eclipses that were humans. when humans
we're not animals. G-Man, where are you? We're not animals. Whatever.
Oh, that's why I used the secret password in the side chat to show that it was me and not anybody else, because obviously certain people can't spell it.
Yeah, I was going to say that people have made a lot of negative myths about the solar eclipse.
But certainly we saw that you know, animals in the region, in the Jacksonville region, there were, you know, things like, you know, deer and bison that went into their sort of, it's nighttime, you know, let's settle down for a nap sort of thing. But then, you know, for example, the eclipses I observed, for example, the couple in Africa, there is a tendency for animals to be more willing to enter into nighttime mode in the middle of the day. It's harder for them to reverse and go back out. So an example, in the 2001 Zambian eclipse, we saw the daybird, nightbird occurring around 7 minutes to 5 minutes before totality, where the nightbirds stayed out flying around for at least 15 minutes after totality before they decided, something's wrong here. It's becoming daylight again. And there are some animals, such as, you know, some of the gazelle, antelope type animals. When it's nighttime, they will go into little burrows, into the thickets and so forth, and go to sleep. And so they miss the visual clues that the sunlight's coming back. The result is they wake up 8 hours later in a jet lag state. Right? Example of the case of the 2001 Zambian eclipse, and this is part of, you look at this map right now, we were in this region. It occurred in mid-afternoon. So the animals that went to sleep thinking that it was you know, nighttime and the morning dawn would come, woke up in the middle of the night after having rested 8 hours. So people like, you know, the animals like zebras were quite startled in this area. They would be, you know, they were sort of standing around waiting for the dawn to come. Of course, what came were lions and leopards and other predators saying, wow, all this free food standing around waiting for me to eat. And so the predatory animals went on a sort of a feeding binge, eating and killing as much as they can. They were stuffed full. Meanwhile, the zebras sort of stood there. It's not really geared for nighttime, and so you could actually go up quite close to them, wave your hands, and they just wouldn't see you because they're sort of night blinded. So yes, you can get jet lag from animals, can be traumatized. So here's a map.
But for humans, it would be very scary when you don't know about you know, how the moon and the sun works. Like you've always seen the sun in the sky and never seen it disappear, but suddenly it disappears. That would be very scary for you.
Well, think about it. Would have been in like, you know, 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I also admit that even though we know exactly what's happening, and again, you know, and having that joy of the timing happening within a second of my calculations, there still is a bit of my brain that reacts to seeing the sunset and seeing the corona. I do, when I plan my visual observing schedule for the 2 minutes, for example, the 2 minutes and 60.3 seconds, I allowed myself about 15 seconds where my brain just turns to mush, right? You're awed by this thing happening, and you don't really plan on doing anything until for the first 10 or 15 seconds, maybe even 20 seconds, because of just sort of how emotionally powerful the seeing totality occurred. And again, there is a extraordinary difference between even 99.9% total and total. That the totality, when the moon finally covers the sun, and you see the corona flash out, your eyes are not very good at telling the difference between extraordinarily bright and very bright. So what tends to happen physiologically is that you see, if you watch the diamond ring form and the sun setting behind the moon, it appears, the light goes down by almost 1,000,000-fold in a very short period of time, and all of a sudden it appears to be brighter because now you see the corona. It's always been there, but it's too faint to see. Now you see this corona, a bit brighter than the full moon, but flash, that flashing out of the corona a couple solar diameters gives you an appearance as if the sky got brighter. Yeah. But the other thing that happens, for example, in this particular case, is that Venus, you could see, Jupiter, Regulus, Mercury, Venus, showed next to the sun. So some of the brighter objects in the sky come out, as well as this extraordinary corona. But all around you is bathed by this bluish silverish coronal light that is so you have a whole region around you that is under this really sort of eerie light that's coming. Plus the wind is suddenly stopped, right? The wind was coming off the shadow. You're now in the shadow, and in fact the wind is sort of descending down on top of you. You get this calm feeling from wind. So it really is an emotional experience to see one of these things.
Is it also the reason why we see sunspots like black, even though they are very hot and should be shining very brightly?
Well, sunspots are typically regions where you have a distortion of the magnetic field inside this in the sun. And that tends, the way, at least our current model is that the breaking and reconnecting of magnetic field lines takes away energy from the surface and cools it. And so the sunspots are spots on the surface that are actually being cooled, and that's why they appear dark, because they're
still exceptionally hot. If it wasn't for the rest of the sun, we would see those black spots as exceptionally bright. It's just the contrast difference, right?
Yes, the contrast difference. So I can show you some spots in a moment, but let's this particular map here that I'm projecting is shows you total and annular eclipses. An annular eclipse is when the moon is too small angular wise to cover the sun, so you get a ring. So the red ones are not total but rings. The blue are where it is total. And this is a Mercator projection. So these really wide things up here, like the 2015 March 20th stuff that looks big, that's just a problem of taking the round Earth and smashing it flat, right? This is a map distortion thing. But as I was going to say, what you see here, this line here, 2017 August 21st, this was the path of totality that just occurred. So the beginning of this line is where the moon shadow touches down at sunrise, right? The eclipse begins at sunrise. The end of this line is where the eclipse begins at sunset. The star here is where it is noon. And so this was the path that the moon's shadow crossed there. So you see the 2017 August 21st line. The next one is this, the next total eclipse is this line here. It is 2019 July 2nd. And it is going across Chile or in Argentina. And it also goes next to Pitcairn Island. And Pitcairn Island, if those that know about the history of the Bounty and the famous mutiny and Captain Bligh, a lot of stuff relating to Australian history and so forth, as to Pitcairn, Pitcairn, and Pitcairn is going to be near the path of totality. That's where I'm going to be going.
I have a question. I have a question about the red line up near Greenland. Is it when the solar eclipse happened, and then it didn't go through over the Earth, but right at its edge, I think, or
yes,
is it not?
Yeah. So you're talking about this one on
Yes.
Labeled 2003 May 31st. This particular disk here. That occurred because, and much like the similar disk down here in 2014, the center of the shadow never touched ground. So it was not a central eclipse. All you got was
the edge of the Earth. It grazed.
Yeah, it still seems weird that even with the Mercator projection, it causes that weird shape. I understand that things get distorted on a Mercator projection, but that shape right there just seems weird to me. I don't know why.
Yeah.
So again, Pitcairn, Pitcairn, Island. You should look at that. That's so I'm going to be at Pitcairn. The reason why is in July for the Southern Hemisphere is their winter time. So July is like January, and we think the chances of there being clouds and rain in this part of South America are pretty high. So we're going to be out on a ship region here to. The one thing about the ship is we can dodge around and find a hole in the cloud if it's partially cloudy. 2019, July 2nd, the next solar eclipse. The one beyond it that probably is worth trying is the 2020 December 14th. This path here through South America, but it's in December, which is like their July, and the weather should be actually relatively good in both Chile and Argentina. And so if you say, I can't afford to go on a ship from French Polynesia into the middle of nowhere, and I want to have a good chance of seeing an eclipse, this 2020 December 14th eclipse in Chile and Argentina, again, some wonderful areas there. Great people, the wine, the food there is just outstanding. I would encourage you to consider this 2020 December 14th eclipse. So those are the first two. I'm going to switch over.
I just wanted to say I really understand your kind of like almost early Keanu Reeves whoa moment when it happens, because
it is. I mean, it does have. I mean, it's ironic, and I could see for some, in ancient times, someone not understanding what's going on, really freaked out. But there is something about it, a reptilian, almost like that reptilian part of your brain that sits there and says, "Well, this isn't normal. It's outside of the normal realm." I want to switch over to the next map here. That's what's going to tell us.
The solar cycle, though, which allows you to predict solar eclipses from lunar eclipses.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear your.
My hobby is archaeology.
What you said? Yes.
Yeah. So there's something called the Soros cycle.
You're breaking up, man.
And so what he's saying is that he's an archaeologist, and there's something called the Soros cycle, which allows one to predict eclipses, both lunar and solar. And so when you hear about the ancients, right, the Medes, the Persians, Mesopotamians, Chinese, many other civilizations that went and are able to predict eclipses, one of the things that even several thousand years ago noticed is this sort of a cycle of the lunar and solar cycles are not nice integral multiples, but every it turns out that every 18 years, 11 days and 8 hours, the moon and sun return back to about the same location. So for example, here is this arc here I'm showing, I'm projecting, is the next solar eclipse in Antarctica, 2021 December 4th. And if you look at this line here, almost the same orientation, but shifted, it's shifted 8 hours back in 49 December 15th, the same same situation. You'll see something like you'll see these patterns occurring. So the ancients who kept good calendar records, that eclipses would basically that the pattern tended to self, and so as an example, this eclipse here that's going across Africa in 2034 March 20th is almost the same as what occurred in 2006. The eclipse that we just had in 2017, if you shift another 11 years, we'll find it. We'll go and find it here. Is this one going across Japan? 2035 September 2nd. This line here across Japan is the same Soros, the same sort of pattern. And if you go 3 Soroses, it'll tend to come back to your original spot. So the eclipse of 1979 the US had a similar sort of trajectory as this 2017. Again, you'll see these patterns occurring. But in terms of so the ancients noticed, and particularly they were able to calculate lunar eclipses and partial solar eclipses, and noticing this pattern of again the 10 years, 11 days, and a few hours. Now, from an ancient perspective that saw the Earth as being flat, pattern repeating 3 times. Because this 8-hour shift, if you go 3 times, it comes back to the original spot. And so we know from, and there's a branch of science called astroarchaeology, where people look for eclipses and comets and other things in the archaeological records, and that's helped us understand a number of things, such as the periodicity of Halley's comet, as helping us understand the long-range cycles of the moon and the sun.
And conversely, what it's also helped us to do is establish some really, really accurate dates for certain events.
Absolutely.
Thank you. You explained that better than I ever could, and thank you.
Yeah,
and I'm going to drop this
because in the records they don't sit there and say, "Well, we're happen to be 500 BCE." The records tend to be more of, in the 13th year of the reign of so and so, the dragon came out and swallowed the sun.
Exactly.
And that can turn around, and we can sit there and say, we can wind the clock backwards, and that occurred on blah 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 this day at this location. So you can pin locations, you can pretend dates down in the reverse as well.
But it also means, because a lot of societies recorded the dates based on the length of the reign of a king or a queen.
Yes.
It then allows you to start to say, okay, now we've got a much better idea of how these things stack on top of each other, and it then allows us to place other. And it's one of the things that I love. And I'm going to shut up now. But thank you.
So a very important, for example, observatory in China is called Purple Mountain Observatory, and Purple Mountain Observatory has been an ancient spot that has observed quite a number of regions of that thing, and this Nanjing was one of the capital of China in ancient China, and they had for a very long period of time very, very detailed observations of the sky, and the practice was to have 5 people looking the 4 compass directions and 1 looking at top, record everything that happened. And so these recordings had stuff about birds flying across and clouds and other things, but they would also record where the planet, where the planet Jupiter was, and of course, eclipses. And from that, we have one of the most complete records in extraordinary detail from China that allows us to really pinpoint some items. And again, the mentioning of other things, such as the emperor came out and blessed the crops, and it was plentiful that year, and there was much rain. Well, we can then pin that down to an eclipse, which was also observed, to know what year, what day, and then look at the tree rings to see a particularly wet year, and pin down lots and lots of things as a result of archaeology and astronomy. Two very valuable sciences that tell us things in great detail what's happening.
Hey, real quick, a lot of people are asking to join. I've given out the link again in the Hangout IM that I set up for these types of things. If you're not in it, you have to message me and I'll put you in it if you're pre-vetted. I also did put this particular one in the Great Debate Community G+, like I usually do, because this is a regulated hangout. It's not snipeable, and I can control who comes in and out. So it's not like a GDC community hangout where they just kind of have a regular hangout. They have to actually use a different means to get people in. So if you want to come in, come on in.
Yeah,
but don't message me because I won't be able to respond to you. My computer's really slow. I'm having a hard time typing in the live chat right now. Which, by the way, they're completely off topic on the live chat. But
the answer to many questions in this chat is eggplant. No,
I like eggplant. I'm really hungry. I'm on I'm on this diet, I don't know if you know yet. It's just killing me. I'm starving. I haven't eaten anything all day.
I thought the answer was 42.
Today's answer to all of Edgar's questions, if Edgar comes in, is eggplant. That's
I missed your voice, Red. God, I miss your voice. You need to drop in more often. You have the greatest voice.
I want to point out, Red, from Australia. Take a look at the map of what happens to Australia in this next 20-year cycle. Look at all these solar eclipses that just cover this place.
I want to officially invite everyone in the GDC to my place, 2032 viewing party. I am in totality. I walk out my back door and look up, and it's like I'm in the dark. So come on down, 2032.
Oh, are you? Can I come?
All of you can. Come on down.
and
ZP wants to join you. She's in Florida, but she'll find a way down.
You're going to 2030. Are you talking about the 2037 July 13th?
Is it 20? I thought it was 32. It's 37. Is it? My bad.
Yeah.
I'm horrible.
I don't mean to dox you, but your accent does give away what continent you're from.
I'm from New Zealand. Yes, that's right.
Could never have guessed.
To again, just say yes, you're right. I'm Welsh.
Hold on, I'll better come yourself. Excellent, mate. Excellent.
You're not Scottish, Red Eye? What?
Yeah. So anyway, so if you look at, some places are real lucky, and so for this next 20-year period, this is the eclipses for 2020 to 2040. There is Australia is a really prime example there. Now, I have a computer calculator in the background. If someone wants to give me a city and state or a city and country, I will go and calculate when eclipses are for your area. If you're not as fortunate as to be where Red Eye is.
Can I say something? Amsterdam, the Netherlands.
Okay, Amsterdam.
I don't think that there's going to be a solar eclipse there within 100 years or so. I don't know.
Yeah, Europe gets kind of ripped off in that sense for there. But we're talking about total eclipses, right? That's the thing, because
I know the last total eclipse in the UK was 1998.
Yeah,
and I don't think we're due to get another one until 2040.
So for Europe, one of them I want to highlight is this 2027 August 1st eclipse. 2027, this line here, and it goes right across southern Spain. There's also Tangiers in Morocco. And that is going to be a really great eclipse, right? It is nice and long, and the weather in August 1st, August 2nd, particularly if you're on the Atlantic side of the Gibraltar region, is going to be really, really great. And usually it is, right? And so this is one area here. There's also this particular 2026 August 12th thing that goes across. That will also be pretty good. So looking at Amsterdam, Amsterdam's last total eclipse was in the year 1433, January 17th, and it was 4 minutes and 38 seconds. The next eclipse in Amsterdam is the year 2817, September 2nd. So Amsterdam 2817.
Oh my God.
Yeah. By the way,
and it's only 1 minute and 14 seconds. So you have almost plus 1,000-year gap there, unfortunately, for Amsterdam. So I would recommend that you travel. I've been waiting.
Yeah, yes. Ken, you just have to jump on in, or Land is kind of like a cross between like Jade and what's his name? Well, she's kind of like he's kind of like Jade. You have to kind of like stop him at some point, or he could literally talk forever, right?
Sorry.
No, it's just fine. No, he's a genius. But yeah, you got to just jump in when you can. Go for it, Kenny.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Landon, I know eclipses have been important throughout the history of man. For example, Thales, in predicting an eclipse, kind of started the entire philosophical and science endeavor in Greece. I know Arthur Eddington proved, or it was the first confirmation of general relativity for Einstein. What other significant things have we learned from eclipses? I mean, what have they done for us as far as knowledge of the universe and things like that?
Well, eclipses gave us a very accurate model of where the Earth and the Moon are, right, and the shape of the Moon. Gave us these two dynamical systems. It helped us refine a lot of early on the Newtonian mechanics of the Earth Moon positions, particularly lunar eclipses or lunar occultations, where the Moon would either pass in front of the star, or you would see during a lunar eclipse where the Moon is full, but the Earth shadows on the. You can see relatively faint stars right next to the Moon that otherwise would be hard to see, and so you can pinpoint the position of the Moon. That allowed multiple observers at the same time to pinpoint the Moon and give a distance to the Moon, actually a geometric distance. So one of the early things that occurred was to give people also a detailed account of the shape of the Earth. The Earth is not a perfect sphere; it's more kind of an egg-shaped like thing, and so a detail observing where the Moon's shadow goes across the Earth gives you a much better model about the shape of the Earth. I
saw a picture of it, and it looked like that the flat Earth was confirmed, and it's turtles all the way down, holding the Earth up.
Yes. Well,
I'm going to have to warn on you, because the flat Earthers are going to quote you when you say the Earth is egg-shaped.
Yes, well, it is. I mean, by egg shape, I mean that one
technical.
One of the poles is more pointy and one's more rounded, right? In terms of the sphere of the Earth. If you look at the deviations off of a sphere from the Earth, well, the first order thing you see is the spin of the Earth causes the equator to bulge and the poles to flatten. And the second thing you notice that the obliquity of that one pole is flattened slightly more than the other.
But if you were going to put it in percentage terms, it's pretty small.
Yes. Now, by being small, for example, we took we had a precision weight that in Tokyo, Japan was measured at 20.00001 grams. We took it to the South Pole, and it weighed 20.008 grams. So we saw from 0.00001 to 0.008, and that again is due to various things. First of all, the spin of the Earth at the pole is not throwing the weight out, and secondly, your distance to the center of mass is different.
Less.
I have a question about the occurrence of the solar eclipse on the Earth. Like, we've just established that in Amsterdam you have like a huge gap between the last one and the future one. But in Australia you have like a lot of solar eclipses coming up. So is there a probability distribution of where you are on Earth, where it's more likely to get a solar eclipse in the future, and some less likely?
On average, you wait about 375 years to find an eclipse. But
it doesn't matter where you are.
There's a distribution, right? If I showed you a map, I have a map showing you the eclipses of the last 1,000 years, and you still have holes.
Yeah.
So, for example, someone and the thing asked for Stoke-on-Trent. Stoke-on-Trent, United Kingdom. Yes. And that showed that there was an eclipse there in the year 1715, May 1st, a 4-minute eclipse. The same one that went, I guess, to Amsterdam. And the next one is the year 2151.
Interestingly,
14. 2151, and they have a 3-minute 48-second.
So if you look up, over a very long period of time, it doesn't form a pattern. It's just random. From place to place.
I mean, it certainly is not random, but there's a complex set of cycles. So, for example, again, if you look at the years that of that location when it had an eclipse, you're 129, 228, 413, 458. So that was a short thing. 639, 878, 1140, and then a long gap to 1715. Then 2115 and 2151, excuse me, and then the next one beyond that is the year 2600. Further along, depending upon where you are. Any other locations that people want to try?
How about Penzance in the UK?
So Penzance.
P for Papa, E for Echo, N for November, Charlie, Echo.
As in the place made famous by Gilbert and Sullivan. Yes. All right. So we'll do this here. Yes, I put it on the map there. So we look at that and run again. And so I'm doing the database again of just totality, right? It's not counting on all the partials or lunars and so forth.
Hey, Sean.
So, hello. You're running it takes a while for the computer to do the calculations. So of course, you had the 1999 August 11th eclipse that you saw.
Yep.
That was, so you saw that the 1715 one I mentioned on the previous location, Stoke-on-Trent. They saw it. They saw the 1999 August 11th, and then you have to wait till the year 2090. Wow. September 23rd, 6 seconds. Now they also see, by the way, that year 2600 one. They also see that one, and they see the 2189. But they also have an eclipse in 2090. So for those that are, if you head over to Penzance, you'll be able to see one in 2090. You don't have to wait as long.
But it just shows how weird it is, because I just happen to know that there's actually quite a high frequency of solar eclipses for Cornwall compared to the whole rest of the UK.
Yeah, I mean they had one year, the year 19 and the year 28. So they sometimes can be quite close to each other.
Hey, real quick, Sean, you wanted to drop on in and ask something about the ozone or something other? And by the way, the link
not about the.
I was going to say the link to get in.
I got it in the Great Debate Meeting. Yes, I finally got it.
All right. Yeah. So what was your question?
Thinking about I wasn't asking a question about ozone. It's just that's where we went, was Ozone, Tennessee, for our excursion to see the eclipse. And I just want to say thank you to Landon, because some of the stuff that he did in your first hangout we actually used and got great footage because of it.
You were in totality.
So
Totality?
Yeah, totality.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me your experience.
Well, I set up an excursion to Ozone, Tennessee, because the path to totality wasn't centered on my aunt's yard. It was 13 miles from dead center.
Yep.
And me and a bunch of other Great Debate community members all joined up to meet there, and we're just outfitted to the gills with equipment.
That's awesome.
And some of the things that we managed to catch was Earthshine, which we didn't expect to get, because when we were just looking at the raw footage, we couldn't see it. But as soon as we raised the brightness on the pictures, there was the moon.
Oh.
We caught the shadow bands in 4K, which was really impressive.
Wow.
I've seen many videos out there. Some are more detailed because they're lower resolution. I think that actually kicked us in the butt a little bit. It was a GoPro. We couldn't adjust the exposure down, so it's hard to notice them, but they are there in 4K in all their wonderful splendor. And the second set. So we got them coming and going. Both sides.
Wow.
Yeah, we did a really good job.
Tell me about your experience between the diamond ring and ring. It's called the second contact diamond ring and the third diamond ring. Were they similar for you? Were they different? If so, how?
Well, they were obviously on opposite sides, but other than that, they looked pretty similar. I mean, the first diamond ring took a little longer to go away than the second one actually appeared. It was really wild, and I think that's just topography.
And that's exactly the case. That I'd have to do the calculation of the lunar profile for your location. And our location, the sun rose between two mountain ridges on the moon, and so it came up. What was an apparent canyon, right? The two line, the two mountain ranges were sort of almost gave a virtual canyon, and so the hang time in our case for the third diamond ring was considerably more than the second diamond ring, which was a plateau. But just that little shift in time, of the moon and that shift of the profile can dramatically change that. So, for example, in our particular case, the eclipse started 1.3 seconds early of the sun setting at a very high plateau, apparent setting on a high plateau on the moon,
right?
And then that other valley also changed the time. So the actual eclipse time can be adjusted by a couple of seconds side to side if you move around on the map and get a different spot.
We did make the mistake that we didn't let our eyes adjust to the darkness before totality, so we were only able to I can't talk. We were only able to see Venus, Jupiter, and Regulus.
Yeah. So people asked about Chile on there. There is an eclipse in Chile in 2019, July 2nd, although that's going to be in central Chile or northern central Chile, and it's likely to be cloudy at that time. Although it's possible, you never know. The better one for Chile is the next one beyond that, 2020, December 14th. So both the 2019 total eclipse and the 2020 eclipse occur, the Chile is in the path. But the 2020 December 14th is going to be during the dry season, and is most likely to be.
Can you run a quick calculation for me?
Clearer.
For Oregon, Ohio.
So Oregon, Ohio.
It's right outside Toledo.
Okay. All right. So anyways, but it sounds like you had a wonderful time.
It was a blast meeting everybody and actually catching the footage that we did. It was, some of it's already been posted on some of our channels already. I personally have the 4K Res Rhetoric had the actual 2 diamond rings.
I would really like to get the image of the shadow band, the 4K shadow band stuff for that, because that's something I've been studying, and so that would be really valuable data if I could get a hold of.
I've actually jumped between 3 different theories on what it actually causes, and I'm pretty well thinking of it more like the world's largest dual or double slit experiment with several hundred slits. Is the best way I can describe it.
Yes. So with Oregon, Ohio, the city of Oregon in Ohio, as opposed to the state of Oregon in Ohio. Oregon, Ohio had a really nice eclipse in 1806, almost 5 minutes. And of course, the next one beyond that is the year 2024, April 8th. And it's in a prime location for the 2024 eclipse. The next eclipse is recurring to the continental U.S.
Right.
And they have to wait to 20...
well, the reason I was asking was because I got back-to-back eclipses with relatives there.
Excellent.
This past one was my aunt's house, and the next one is my mother and father's house.
Wait, after 2099, you have to wait to 2505. You're sitting in a nice, interesting set. I guess looking back historically, so it's had gaps, but also has had short bursts. And if you're in this, you're fortunate in that 1806, 2024, 2099 looks pretty good.
Do you know if it's going to be a total or an annular?
For 2099,
2040 or 2024.
2024 looks like it's total. It's in the path of totality.
Nice.
If the coordinates I did are correct on there, I would. I'm pretty sure, given where the location is in 2024. Yeah, in fact, if you look at them, let me project that again. But let me go back to.
Well, while you're looking that up, Steve.
Yes, sir.
You have your official invite to come to the 2024.
Okay, so here again is the
with what, my charming personality and great looks. I mean,
yeah, no, just so you can be there for the eclipse with everybody else that's coming.
Well,
yeah,
I don't even drive. I have no means to get down there, but I appreciate the invite. But I'll be there in spirit, unless I mean, maybe I'll find some rich sugar mama or something that'll take care of me. ZP. If you want to hook me up,
Yeah.
She don't care. She'll take
here
me.
Of the 2024 eclipse, you see that it's going over Ohio. So
path of totality. That is huge.
That zone there.
That's like half the state of Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's and I think they're saying the duration for that in 2024 is going to be about 4 minutes and 28 seconds. So it's about twice as long as the one you experienced.
Oh, nice.
Texas or Arizona would be a good place to.
Yeah. So, York, England. A lot of people in. Someone wants to know about York.
That's a long time away.
Hey, Landon, I just wanted to let you know that I am going to ask you about the moose a bit later, so prepare, mate.
Yeah. So, here I'm doing the. It's part of that hissing in the background is my computer doing the calculations. It has to account for the true shape of the Earth, which is not flat, shape of the moon and positions and stuff. But these kind of detailed calculations are in part thanks to some archaeological work where we can pin down ancient eclipses, as well as things like the NASA orbiting satellites to give us a really good map of the Earth. So for York, the last eclipse was in the year 1433, and the next eclipse is the year 2151. But then you got one in the year 2020. Excuse me, 2151, and then 2200, and then 2381. So it has a triplet of 3 eclipses to wait till the year 2151. So other locations we want to ask about? I don't know if I missed any in the chat room.
No, they're largely arguing about something else currently.
The South Pole. The South Pole.
What about a nice tropical island to view the eclipse from? Is there any
hang on. When's the next total eclipse of the South Pole?
South Pole. That's a good thing. And so someone asked about the nice tropical islands. I mean, certainly there was the great one across Easter Island. Was a really fantastic eclipse, and that one occurred. I say that that was the 2010 eclipse across Easter Island.
Were you there?
Can you even have a totality at South Pole? I was just
yes.
kidding. You can have a totality at South Pole. How do you have a totality at South Pole?
Sure.
Really?
Well,
I'm trying to wrap my head around that one.
The moon shadow touches that spot. Right. That's how you. So I'm doing the calculations now for South Pole.
I guess if you look
now, I want to point out that the eclipse that occurs in December 4th, 2021 goes close to the South Pole. In fact, I'm going down there this January to do the site survey, but the 2021 December 4th eclipse in Antarctica is going to be an extraordinary eclipse because of the clarity of sky. It'll be very, very low, very, very dry. So it's high chance of being cloud free, and it will be, a nice, crisp, under the best skies that we can find on the planet. So there's going to be a lot of a group that's basically taking planes from the tip of South America, Magellan Strait, down to Union Glacier. You can look up Union Glacier in your Google thing, Union Glacier, Antarctica, and we'll have a nice eclipse down there. I highly recommend swing it the 20.
But you can never have it right over the pole though itself, right?
Well, so the last time an eclipse occurred at South Pole was in the year 379. The next eclipse at the South Pole is the year 2094. So there was a pretty long gap, almost 1,600-year gap. But the year 2094, January 16th, of course, this has to be during their summertime. The eclipse will be 1 minute and 51 seconds. So after 2094, there's 2112. So they actually have two within a short period of time.
2112, one of the greatest albums of all time.
The difficulty with so the difficulty of getting an eclipse down in Antarctica is that the shadow has to basically go Earth's radii to reach back to the pole. It's a small profile from the respect of the moon in terms of just nicking the bottom of the Earth. But the other thing is that it's got the moon has to be close enough that the shadow projects back underneath the Earth to that half radii, which is why it is not a frequent spot. I mean, in the years they only have 9 eclipses in 5,000 years, so it's not the best spot. Someone did ask
I would assume the North Pole would be about the same kind of rate, wouldn't it?
North Pole. And well, it looks like the luck of the draw. It's finding more. There's actually there's about twice as many in the North Pole as South Pole. So, for example, there was an eclipse in the North Pole in the year 1815, and then now there's one. Next one is 2214. So the North Pole has, in the 5,000-year cycle, has 5, 10, 16 eclipses. So it's kind of the luck of the draw, if you will, if you want to say it's luck. But as I say, it's a matter of how the cycles work out. Other locations?
Just quickly going to mention, while Landon, we've talked about this, when Landon's in the South Pole in January, he may be able to fall into the GDC, so we're hopefully going to have to work out a way to see if that's possible for starters, but that'd be a bit of a treat to look forward to, as like a live call while Landon's standing at the South Pole.
Yeah, so I have a satellite phone that works very well, and I'd be willing to call some phone number and place a call there. Now, when we get there depends upon weather, so it has to be kind of variable as to where, and the time of day also sort of matters. We'll be at the South Pole for at least 30 hours, maybe longer, depending upon what weather is like. But as I say, I have to also sleep sometime. But I will be on my Twitter feed, Astronomy Travel, posting latitude and longitude, and so you can tell as I'm approaching the South Pole where I am, and then when I arrive, I will certainly tweet that. But if you have some way to take a call and patch it in to a hangout, I'd be happy to have a conversation, answer questions, do some experiments.
Yeah, just remember to take your climbing gear for when you hit that ice wall, mate. Yeah. But one of the experiments I always do is I attempt to jump as hard as I can to see if I can fall off the bottom of the earth. I mean, these are important scientific, things, and every time so far I've returned back to the earth, I may be surprised one day. But again, we're talking about geographic South Pole. This is the spot where all the time zones come together. This is the axial spin location. It also seems to, for some reason, give flat earthers heartburn, but I don't fully understand that physiological effect. So again, if there's some way that we could do a patching a phone call into a Google Hangout, we might want to practice that. Yeah, I thought it'd be a good idea to just get it out there now, because there's someone that's going to know how to do this. We just need to make it happen, because it'll be a very cool experience, I think.
So you're gonna be with them there then, Red? You and Landon are going to be there in the 2019? No.
Oh, mate, I wish I could go. I'd love to go down there. That'd be awesome. But
well, you could try that. You could try the 2021 eclipse there. We're going to also go by there after the eclipse on 2021 as well.
Maybe Landon can adopt us all and just take us all as one big group.
No.
Field trip, guys.
To track your progress towards the pole on your Twitter feed, probably when you're given your GPS coordinates.
So let's figure out.
I just think it's going to be fucking great.
Let's see if we got some questions from the audience. I know the live chats generally talk about what they want to talk about. It's the way it is on these Hangouts, so you can't do anything about it. So they've kind of been distracted with this completely different argument or different thing that they're talking about. But does anybody have questions relating to Landon and the eclipse or eclipses that are upcoming or whatever?
Or something else? Or something else what he is involved in?
Or stuff relating to a location. I can tell you about circumstances. If not, we can...
Hey, Landon, I'll shoot the shit with you. Dude, you know what I've been doing? You should be proud of me. I've been doing on the other channel.
Landon, do you?
What?
Landon, do you know something? Sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
On the other channel, the Great Debate Community channel, I've been doing math presentations.
Excellent. Yes, you've been doing some stuff on limits and calculus.
I did limits. I'm doing one right now. I just finished it. I don't know when I'll do it. I might do it tonight. On first principle, using explaining how you use the delta method and first principle and how we actually get a derivative. And then I was thinking about explaining how the power rule we get from that, which I may, but I don't know if I have to go through all that. But maybe I will. Maybe I'll just throw that as an addendum. I don't think anybody wants to sit through how we derive the power rule, but I actually had, because of you, I think I actually kind of had a resurgence in math, my interest in math, because I never was that great at it. I had to learn it, but I never was somebody that was exceptionally good at math by any stretch of imagination. But I found certain things to be interesting. So, having you on has kind of like rekindled an interest that I had. Oh, you know what? Some of this stuff is pretty nifty. Maybe I should kind of relearn some of the stuff and see if I can regurgitate it or something, So thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is a math, particularly when you grind through some derivation and come up with some results. It's a very satisfying
Yeah, that thing we were talking about a few weeks ago, Landon, shuffling a deck of cards and how many shuffles and how many that specific. I found that incredibly interesting because it was sort of really non-intuitive. You'd go for an average and it turns out it doesn't follow.
Don't you hate it when something doesn't follow common sense?
Landon, I put it in the side chat for the link to our 4K shadow bands.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's like in mathematics, it's something that is counterintuitive or like a vertical paradox. You sit there and go, man, this is trippy. Why is this like this? It shouldn't be this way. But of course, it doesn't give a shit whether you understand it or not. It's reality, right?
Yeah. So like someone asked about Cairo, Egypt, and the last time there was an eclipse in Cairo, Egypt was the year 1241.
Whoa.
Is the year 2180. So it's a while, but the eclipse that goes across in 2027 is going to be near Cairo. We close, but not in the actual shadow. So for those that are in Cairo, I would recommend going a little bit south to view the eclipse in 2027. There's actually some famous pyramids that's going to go over that time.
You should tell everybody about the time you nearly got to ride in a SR-71 to chase an eclipse.
Yeah, we were working on trying for the Australian eclipse of 20. It would have been the one for 2012, and we would have taken off from a Australian American Air Force or a base called Pine Gap. We would have flown across Queensland and landed in New Zealand and done that chase. But unfortunately, since I'm not a pilot, that would require the SR-71 with a training module, and that plane was taken out of commission for spare parts.
I was gonna say they don't fly the SR-71 Blackbird any longer. That's like that was old school stuff. That was like Lockheed Martin back in the Area 51 shit, right?
Yeah, they do have a couple operational still, and Landon nearly got
really?
Like he said, there was the trainer one. There was still one going, and it was stationed at Pine Gap. I did not know this, and get a ride in it. The people that own it went, "Oh, we're going to scrap that one for parts and keep this other one going." It's like,
well, the problem is that the number is declining, and the parts are difficult to manufacture, and they no longer needed to train pilots. They have different ways of training them now with simulators than an actual physical. So they lost their trainer thing, and so
that just touching on the SR-71, that plane was designed on paper with pencils and no computers involved. That was all done.
Hey, real quick,
one hell of a freaking bird. If anyone knows their planes, the SR-71 is a feat of engineering. It's a magnificent.
Oh yeah,
bird.
that was a great plane for its time. Anybody know is that still a ZP or is she dead? I just want to make sure. Okay, that's a still. Okay. Make sure we didn't kill you.
So how many of people in this hangout saw the total eclipse? Me.
Just you and Sean, I guess.
You saw it as well?
No, you did. ZP, you're in Florida. How did you see it? Where'd you go?
Me?
Yeah, where'd you see the? Were you in totality?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Yes.
No, I just saw the partial.
Oh, okay, the partial. Okay, so not the same thing. Yeah. We're excluded from the cool people group. ZP, you see that? Yeah. We're not cool enough to be in the totality club.
I say,
did you at least get a shirt out of it?
Chat that wants to give us city and state or city and country. I'll do the eclipse calculations for you.
Does anybody want to give
I have a question about the different.
Please.
Different topic. Are you currently familiar with anything that is new, exciting stuff happening in the area of cosmology or physics?
Yes, I follow cosmology quite. Anything in particular?
Quantum physics, the origins of the universe, or maybe dark energy, what we know. Maybe we have now a new clue or what it is.
Well, in fact, if you look at my T-shirt, "Dark Energy: The New Black," I should mention this is a special T-shirt made for actually there's the people that won the Nobel Prize that just in physics that was about the discovery of the acceleration of the universe. Got this T-shirt, and the King of Sweden that presented the Nobel Prize got it, and I got one of these T-shirts due to services rendered. They had some data drive problems that I helped them overcome. We'll put it that way. So I'm pleased to be one of the few people with this limited edition T-shirt. Dark energy is the call most of the universe. Nearly 69% of the universe appears to be this dark energy, and the effect of dark energy is as if the grid of space is expanding, right? That the universe is accelerating in rate of expansion, which came as quite a surprise when it was discovered. But now we have at least 4 independent methods of determining that the space is accelerating in its expansion currently.
But we don't know why it is expanding, or do we have new clues of why it is expanding?
Yes, we don't. The whys are often harder to find out than what.
Yeah.
The fact that we see it expanding, the fact that the universe about 5 billion years ago, an acceleration phase where gravity, the normal effects of gravity that would have taken material and drawn it in, the expansion of space, grid of space, is causing gravitational force to become weaker and weaker. At the moment, dark energy behaves if it's a repulsive type of force. The space is accelerating, quite surprisingly. As to why it's not known, it right now there's detailed observations going on to try to determine if this acceleration is uniform in all directions, and also if it's uniform over time.
I draw the analogy that dark energy now is kind of like how gravity was prior to Einstein. We didn't know why gravity does what it does.
Yes.
We could describe it. We could say, oh, it really is there. We don't know what it is yet. But now, thanks to Einstein, we have a good idea of what it is. But with dark energy, we don't know.
Yes, it certainly is a problem for example, like the Standard Model in nuclear physics, where dark energy in it, and that's kind of an embarrassing of the Standard Model, given that about 69% of the universe is dark energy. So, but celebrates questions. Science is about questions, and right now science is really excited because we have all these questions about dark energy, and what does science do with these questions? Well, we explore, we test, we hypothesize stuff. We make statements that are falsifiable and attempt to then falsify them. And so that's a lot of what's going on right now in dark energy research is people are hypotheses and designing experiments to falsify their hypothesis. And we'll see what is left standing.
Just want to jump in real quick. A few days ago, a certain friend of ours zipping around a certain planet did another dive. Have we got any from that latest little adventure?
You're talking about the probe Juno, which is doing an amazing journey over around Jupiter, diving in very, very close. This last time, the time before this, it went over the Great Red Spot and showed us some glorious details of stuff. I have not seen anything from this new the new image cross my desk. I believe it survived.
Heard if it survived or anything yet. I haven't seen anything pop up on my Twitter feed about it, and why? That's why I sort of.
By the way, my computer's running really slow right now, so if I'm like bugging out or my typing is horrible because it's just so slow because I'm broadcasting. So please forgive my not participating as much because it's kind of like lagging for me a little bit. Even my typing, I can't even type a live chat because it's just the keyboard. But
okay, but you're certainly always welcome to jump in here. So
I was paying attention to the live chat for a second. We got trolls, and I don't mind people trolling if they're on topic or something like that. But if you let me tell my moderators real quick, if people come in and they make stupid freaking statements that they don't back up and they're clearly just agitating and just getting for effect, don't waste your time with them. Just time them out. I have no compunction. That's not censorship. It is, these people have nothing better to do rather than spew garbage and not be able to back a single thing up. And I just don't have the time or the patience for it any longer. That's not censorship. If somebody comes and says, I have an argument, let's discuss this, that's fine. But if somebody says something stupid like, well, the Bible is the word of God, and you can't prove God does not exist, even though I'm claiming God exists, that's just not how you do. That's not how you have an interlocutory. That's not how you have a discussion. Those people are not worth the time, the day. They're beyond fruit on the ground. They're rotting fruit on the ground. Monitors and people on the side.
So yes, I recommend timing them out.
Time them out. Yeah, Landon is the smartest person in the room. So he says time them out. Take advice. So yeah, don't bother with him.
Yeah, because you ban them, they can just come back. But timing them out.
Yeah, no, I let them come back, right? Don't ban them. Yeah, don't ban them.
Contemplate their deeds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Bingo, thank you. Contemplate their deeds.
Did you know that timeout stack, you can stack timeouts on top of each other just like pancakes?
And I had a lot of blue there for a while, a lot of spanners in the live chat. Unfortunately, this didn't get as viewed as I kind of hoped. Maybe it's because of the time of day, and Saturdays are not good days for hangouts. I've noticed that, and I understand that people are like doing their own thing. And so this is not a slight against Landon, because Landon is one of the most popular guests, and he's actually one of my favorite guests because he can talk about any subject you want, to make conversation on anything, which is pretty impressive, and with almost like an authoritative position. So
Juno, the Juno spacecraft, its close approach over Jupiter was on September 1st, yesterday. And it was supposed to go only 3,500 kilometers above a little bit closer.
What was it, the one that just plunging into the atmosphere? Was that Cassini that's going to be taking a dive soon?
Yeah, Cassini is going to dive in it. So one of the reasons why we may not have heard from images from Juno is typically the spacecraft basically records and has to wait until it climbs out from under the radiation belts of Jupiter in order to effectively communicate with Earth. So it may not be.
It is Labor Day weekend. I'm sorry.
Before
point out it's Labor Day weekend. But okay, but when
I have a question about.
One sec, because I got horrible lag. So trust me. When is Cassini taking the dive?
Yes.
When is Cassini taking the dive? When is it? It makes this last trip and plunges into the atmosphere.
Oh, you're talking about Cassini going around.
I think Saturn. It was Saturn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Cassini has been on a run. They call this the grand finale. It's been on an amazing journey. And the end of mission is apparently scheduled for September, so it's in 12 days, 13 hours.
Yeah, I thought that was this month. I thought it was in a couple weeks, but I wasn't sure. I didn't want to say it for certain. But yeah, I thought it was in a couple weeks. Yeah. Now, what do they expect to get from the data from that as it plunges into the atmosphere?
I mean, it's going to depend on how long the signal can be maintained.
Are they going to see obelisks?
They've arranged it so that it will be able to start going through the atmosphere and continuously send signals back to as much as it can. They're going to use the last of its hydrogen rock to try to keep the antenna oriented, but it's going to get into very turbulent zones as it moves down deeper into Saturn's atmosphere. And they may begin to tumble. The spacecraft into thick atmosphere. So at some point it'll be ripped to shreds and turn into spectacular. You know, for anyone was around Saturn, it'd be pretty spectacular. Yeah. But
it'll eventually settle and reach the metallic hydrogen middle and just be completely obliterated, pretty much.
Become one with the planet.
Become one with the planet. Yes.
we should
all the planets are yours for everything in the solar system is yours for the taking except Europa. Stay away from Europa.
Yeah, it's certainly there is unique science in terms of we're going to get again more detailed map of the gravitational and magnetic fields close to the planet. It's going to also improve our knowledge of the material of the rings because we'll get a really close view of the rings. We're going to also be able to how the rings are decaying into the planet. The inner edge of the rings, here's the material falling into the planet. So we'll get some that. And of course, we'll get ultra close images of Saturn's rings and clouds as it goes in.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty amazing. Then again, I don't think it's going to last very long. I mean, the pressures that it's going to be exposed to will happen pretty quickly, right? And especially the turbulence.
As soon as it hits the atmosphere and it starts to tumble, it's just going to shred itself, basically.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. But I remember way back when I was growing up, when I was a kid, and I'm sure Landon remembers, there was books published where they would hypothesize creatures living in the clouds of like Jupiter and Saturn, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
floating gas.
Yeah, like jellyfish, right?
Floating gas whales. Yes.
Yes. And I'm just thinking, can you imagine if Cassini actually took a picture of one of those before, which I don't think exists, by the way. I think that's complete bullshit. But it was science fiction at the time, right? Science fiction back then was almost science, theory, because they didn't know anything about these planets. Even in the 50s and 60s, they really didn't have an understanding as much as we do now, by any means, right?
Yeah. So I do not expect that the Cassini will turn into a bowl of petunias.
Anything's possible.
You can mark me down on that if it turns out I'm wrong. Let me know. But
I think that go ahead. Sorry.
The mission started on October 15th, 1997, and so it's had an incredible run. Fuel. It's running out of ability. It's running out of balloon batteries. So we have this unique opportunity to send this really incredible instrument into the clouds and get whatever data we can as it falls in, and we'll see what happens.
It's already on bonus time technically, because I remember a few months back they went, let's do this, and someone went, let's try and straight through the rings between some, and they picked the path, and there's video, I've seen it online, where they've done the probe going through the rings, and it passes through vertically, like straight through. It's fucking unreal.
Yeah.
And the fact that these guys, Cassini and the one zipping around Jupiter at the moment, there in the first place is a feat of fucking engineering in itself. If you have a look at what they had to do to get putting these planets, and the fact that they threaded the needle and got them into orbit, amazing feat just in itself. If you look at the path they took just to get Cassini out there, it's amazing. They slingshotted it from here to there, and then eventually it ended up out there years later.
Yeah, and Juno's one of the best examples of showing that the it's in terms of you're talking about. Remember, I was talking about the detailed what can you do with eclipses, getting detailed position of Earth, Moon. Well, when you launch out of this system towards other systems, you have to know in incredible detail the mass and the positional things for Earth and Moon. And that is thanks to, again, been refined by all these probes that go out there that we can actually measure where things are in the solar system and their distances and thread these things. It's really it also puts a sock in the eye of the flat solar systems. I mean, I know that there's flat earthers, but there must be out there some people dealing with flat solar system. Isn't that a thing? Isn't there a
I had a question about Jupiter. When I see Jupiter with these parallel lines of cloud formations and so, and going in the opposite direction, I always ask myself, how is it possible? How can these lines of clouds go in the opposite directions of each other.
Well, you're talking about the amazing bands around Jupiter,
yes,
and it appears that there are things that appear to be counter-rotating. One of the things you have to be careful of is you're looking at relative motion.
Oh yeah, yes.
So some bands are moving faster than others in that sense. Also, you have another phenomenon that you have storms that kind of roll like ball bearings between two bands, and so it gives you the appearance that things are actually, but it really is a matter of different bands running at different speeds. An object like Jupiter or Saturn, we've learned, is actually quite complex in its motions, right? It's a 3D image. Our atmosphere on Earth is relatively thin compared with the size of the planet. So in many ways, at a gross scale, you can model the atmosphere as a very, very thin surface of the Earth. In Jupiter, you have to deal with a very, very thick, atmosphere. The other thing you have to deal with is incredible pressures and temperatures and magnetic fields that go on. Deep inside Jupiter, inside Jupiter, we have a condition of metallic hydrogen, where the hydrogen is squeezed at such an enormous pressure that it a metal, and that metal has strange quantum behaviors. Above that is a quantum fluid, which also quantum fluids have really extraordinary properties that are very, very counterintuitive. And so this three-dimensional view of Jupiter is something that Juno is trying to probe and figure out mass distributions, because the only thing that we can directly observe is the actual surface. Yeah. And it's like trying to just image the top of a pot of boiling water, not realizing that down in the bottom is pasta and heat elements and other cool things.
We also talked about potential life on Jupiter. Have you any idea when we might find life, or are you not involved in astrobiology?
Well, I'm not an astrobiologist, but probably one of the best places in the Jovian system to look for life is a moon called Europa. Mm-hmm. It's the second innermost of the large Galilean moons. Jupiter has 69 so far, but 4 of them are the really big ones, right? The Io, Europa, Ganymede, Callisto. And Europa has enough tidal forces influencing it that it heats up. Also, Europa has we think has a volume of water that's about 7 times the volume of Earth's oceans.
Liquid water.
Yes, yeah. Liquid water, and it appears. I mean, given the tidal flexure of the surface, it appears as if the model of Europa is you've got a thin ice, an ice shell that's over a very, very deep ocean. Europa also has a magnetic field. There's inside the core. It has a solid core, and there is a magnetic dynamo, much like on Earth, where Europa has a magnetic field. So some of the radiation of Jupiter is shielded, much like Earth's magnetosphere shields us from the sun. The tides on Europa are actually quite extraordinary. We estimate that the surface, almost 500 meters, is about 1,500 feet. Every orbit around Jupiter, 2 times 84 hours for it to go around Jupiter. It's in a very interesting, what's called Laplace resonance, where that every time Io goes around 4 times, Europa goes around twice, and Ganymede goes around once. This 1 to 2 to 4 ratio was initially quite a puzzle. Newton's came out, and people were excited about his both his mathematics that he helped co-develop, as understanding about the properties of or nature of gravity and planetary motions. But the of Io, Europa, and Ganymede around Jupiter pose a puzzle because of this really curious 4:2:1 ratio. And it wasn't until Pierre Laplace worked on the problem. He fixed a number of bugs in Newton's Principia. He filled in a number of gaps, and he also was able to successfully explain why these moons 4:2:1 dance. And this is
a stable configuration.
It appears to be stable, but one of the things that I was involved in with the work from the Paris Observatory, as well as other observations, is to show that 4:2:1 resonance is actually not stable and will probably break up sometime in the next 10 to 100 million years. But in the meantime, what it means is Europa's elliptical orbit causes it to move in and out of Jupiter's gravitational field. You get flexure. That tidal flexure, like an accordion, helps heat up the interior of Europa to the point where the water has been liquefied, or at least is a slurry. We don't know if it's actually a pure liquid ocean or it's more like a ice water mixture. A set of missions to Europa, high priority missions to Europa, they scheduled to actually first orbit Europa and then land on the surface and then go underneath the surface to try to reach the liquid interior. Practice for that is being done in Antarctica. There are deep lakes, ice domes of Antarctica, and people are practicing sending probes down deep into the Antarctic ice.
Well, how thick is that sheet on Europa? I thought it was like I don't know, like 10, 50 miles deep or something like that. It's some ridiculous amount.
There are two models that suggest either it's a very thin ice shell with liquid, or it is a slurry that goes from semi-solid to lots of material, an ice mixture. The images of flyby of Europa show that the surface looks like the kind of iceberg blocks you see around Greenland, where ice is moving and things are cracking. You see the crack and fault lines of material moving in and out of it, and in between the fault lines, the material that comes up and frees at upwells has an interesting discoloration, suggesting that the material underneath the ice high mineral content, which might be useful if something is living down there.
I'm telling you, wouldn't it be nice to live like 500 years in the future or 1,000 years in the future where they probably do know exactly what's like below that ice sheet and just the knowledge that they're going to have. But anyway, guys, I got to cut this short. I do have to get going. I got to get ready for something in about 15 minutes because I'm heading out of the house. And I usually keep this 2 hours.
Can I ask one last question?
Yeah, please.
One last question. Okay. You said that the orbit of Europa is not stable, and it's tidal forces that makes the ocean liquid is probably not always there. So could it have been in the past that it's not was not liquid at all, that it was completely frozen, or was always a tidal force going on?
Well, that's an excellent question, and we don't know at this stage whether or not. There's two models that are competing. One model says that it's been in this resonance mode and having these tidal forces, liquid things, and we happen to be where the last 10 to 100 million years is left. The other model says that it goes in and out of resonance. When the resonance breaks, this 4:2:1 resonance breaks, then what's happening is that the planets will begin to drift outwards, and we don't have enough data at this point whether or not they will reacquire the resonance again. We only have about 117.
So will the planet completely freeze when it loses that resonance?
Well, what happens?
Not the planet, the moon. Sorry.
So what's happening right now is Io is slowing down and going in towards Jupiter, whereas Europa and Ganymede are moving out. If you're familiar with the Earth-Moon system, the Earth's moon is slowly drifting away from Earth at about the same rate as your fingernail grows, and that's due to tidal forces. There are on Jupiter very complex tidal forces, and those tidal forces are causing Io to move in and move out. Some people also suggest that Callisto at one time was in a 9 to 4 to 2 to 1 ratio, and it's broken free. So the other model says that, well, we're seeing is the end of this resonance. And if that occurs, right, when it breaks out of resonance, then Europa's orbit will become fairly circular. Way down, it'll stop flexure, and presumably then its oceans will freeze. The big question is,
if there is life there, then it will be a bad day for them.
Yes, or I guess it depends upon how resilient, if life is there, how resilient it is. It also depends upon the set. See, we only have a 117-year baseline to work from, based upon some very early photographs taken at the Paris Observatory. It's some of the best positions we've had of knowing where the Gallium satellite are. And that doesn't yet give us enough detail to say order of magnitude when it's going to break, other than it is breaking. And then the next thing we don't know is, when it breaks, does it break forever and never go back in, or does it cycle, right? If it cycles, then chances are it cycled before. The question is now the time where it's breaking? We just happen to catch it near the end? And we don't know. From a point of view of life on Europa, it'd be easier if Europa had been in this resonance phase for a long time, because given enough time and interesting chemistry and radiation to sort of scramble things up, you could have a really interesting recipe for life. If Europa has been going in and out of deep freeze mode, that might make it harder for life to get a foothold on Europa. So excellent question. We wish we know, and we're studying it. We don't yet.
One day.
More research needed.
One day.
More research needed.
Yes, absolutely. And so,
funding.
Stay tuned for ESA is spearheading some of these grand missions to Europa. In terms of people placing bets, there is just as it probably just as much, if not more, chance that there's life on Europa there is on Mars. It's not certain, but it certainly is a prime of a thing with liquid water temperatures and minerals and
it's going to be between Europa and Jupiter, right? One of those is going to be more than likely.
Yeah.
Quick question about Mars, Landon. They recently discovered that the top 20 centimeters of soil is basically not going to be much good to us for growing food or anything in, because it's toxic as hell because of some chemical reactions. Going to get around that. They're going to have to either dig down further to get a good soil, or grow indoors or something.
Not just that, the perchlorate's an oxidizer. It'll basically oxidize a lot of things. It's not just for growing. It's the fact that we cannot live on that type of environment. We eat through things, basically, called corrosion.
Yeah, it's the one of the things that the Mars dust is not a very friendly phenomenon, and so that the top layers, which have a combination of this dust being it's got the direct solar radiation, right? Mars doesn't have an ozone hole or ozone layer, right, to protect it. So the UV is baking that radiation, radiating that surface in a pretty good fashion. So if you're going to grow things, you're probably better to live near a cave where you can go deep underground, where the surface effects aren't as strong. But Red Eye, you've raised a very, very important point, which is that it would be very difficult to on Mars right now to plant little plants on the surface and have them grow and flourish. because of the toxicity and the radiation from the sun. But or going deep inside is probably a much more practical way.
And you can
cave dwellers.
You can grow plants without using soil. You can grow plants without using soil.
Because Elon Musk's plan was, he made all of his plans before this information came out about the top 20 centimeters of soil basically being utterly useless to us, and he's got to go back to the drawing board.
It needs a huge workaround.
It's not going to be a surface colony.
Yeah, it's
going to be underground.
Perchlorates are nasty stuff. But we got 5 minutes.
It's a clusterfuck.
I gotta get going. So we gotta end this. But Landon, dude, it's always a pleasure to you come in. I want to appreciate everybody watching. I know it's Labor Day. I know it's Saturday, so not a huge turnout, but that's okay. What we did glean from this was fantastic and interesting. I want to thank my Patreons. I got 2 in here right now, actually. Thank you guys for being Patreons, Landon and Red. And anybody wants to be a Patreon to this channel, just hey. The links below, and even $1 a month, whatever it is, it all adds up. I appreciate it. It all goes to getting guests and spending time finding people. I got some things lined up. This is going to be an interesting month, and got my next guest is actually going to be hopefully Zoe Does Life, if you know who she is. And then I got Dr. Hugh Ross coming on. So hope Landon maybe join us for Dr. Ross if you wish. You're more than welcome to.
Yes, and that's when?
That'll be on the 26th, but that's 9 a.m. in the morning.
Okay.
On the 26th, but you are more than welcome to join us.
Folks, I really appreciated insightful questions, and congratulations to those people that saw the partials and total Eclipse.
Yeah, the totality club that I'm not in. Rub it in.
I would recommend the 2019 might be hard to get to, but the 2020 Eclipse in Chile, Argentina is worth going to. The 2021, if you can afford to get down to Antarctica. Otherwise, the 2024 in across the U.S. to make an effort. These places where you have to wait hundreds of years, you're better off moving to a spot. Wait for it to come to you.
There you go.
Oh, Cal, so you just joined too late. It's about to end.
Yeah, sorry, Cal, you're at the end, buddy. So, I got to end this.
Is there going to be an after show?
No, I got somebody. Look if somebody wants to run an after show on the Great Debate community, by all means. I have a lot of managers that can do that. I have to go though. I won't be back for another hour or two. So, because I am going out of the house. But if someone wants to do an after show, let Landon know now. He's available, which is a rarity because he's a pretty busy guy. He does important stuff. We don't know what that important stuff is, but he does important stuff. Or actually, we don't understand the important stuff. One of these days he has to give a lecture on prime numbers and what the hell all that shit involves. Because even I get lost on that.
So I know, Red Eye, can you do a Google Hangout and we can...
If someone can get one going on. I haven't got channel admin.
I will get. I don't have time to do it right now, but eventually I can give Red's manager control. I don't have time to do it right now, but I'm sure there's some manager that can do it. We've got a lot of them in the community.
Yeah, if someone wants to kick one off and send Landon a link, by all means, I'll more than happy to join.
Yeah,
I would love to, but where I'm at now is let's see, it's 1 a.m. right now, so I think I'm going to bed very soon.
Calzer, are you a manager of the Great Debate community page? I don't think I made you. No, shoot. I'll tell you what. Let's go off air, and then I'll find somebody. But it won't be on this channel. It'll be on the other channel. So if you guys have not subscribed to the Great Debate community channel, the link is also in the video description. It'll be over there, which I'll have somebody run that hangout. So I'll make somebody a manager real quick before I go. But I want to thank everybody for watching. Hope you enjoy. Have a safe Labor Day weekend. Don't drink and drive because you're an idiot if you do. Thanks.